Merry Christmas, everybody. It is I, Stippling Vaughn, and you, of course, know where I am. I'm at my local dive bar. And as promised, I'm giving you a video for Christmas Day as your present. And for today, it's going to be lighthearted. I'm going to be doing, instead of addressing certain things, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing 3 book reviews. They're light book reviews. They're not heavy depth. I don't give away anything in the reviews. Just like if you've ever watched any of my reviews that I've done, I always do my best not to reveal anything because I don't want to ruin anything for you. Okay, so first book I'm gonna go over is No Cover by Sierra Whiskey and Donald DeLay. This came out because everybody was getting Dale Keown covers. When Dale Keown came on the scene, everybody's asking for covers, and he was like, yeah. And John Malin was not getting a cover. It was a long time before John, and it became a running joke that he was never going to get a cover from Dale. So this is just a rip-off of it, or just a spoof parody of that situation. I thought that the story was straightforward, very quick, very simple. I read the whole book in one sitting, so it's a very quick read. It's not very in-depth. A lot of the storytelling is done through Donald DeLay's artwork. I was impressed with Donald DeLay's artwork. Haven't really seen too much of Donald's artwork, but I really did enjoy it. The overall, just he does all the artwork, so you can see where like for instance there's shots with like speed lines and whatnot, and he does the speed lines with color, which I thought was really nice, as opposed to like a lot of people just do the speed lines. He did it using color, which I thought was different from what you normally see, and because he's doing all the artwork, he's able to do it, and he can foresee what to do in color versus what to do in black and white. So, one of the things I really liked about it was how Donald is able to give, because it's a slightly almost like animated style, if you will, semi-abstract, very humorous, expressive. He's very subtle with his line weight overall. He's not really, there's blacks, but overall he allows he does almost like, I want to say like a screen, like a cell for a movie. But if you look at the artwork, you can see where he's not really heavy in the blacks. But the line weight is very, very subtle. So you could say how it's like, oh, the line weight is the same throughout, almost like using a ballpoint pen. That's not the case. He's very subtle with his line weight, which I do appreciate. So there's a lot. One thing was nice about it, okay, with the use of Donald DeLay and Sierra. Whiskey's the one, Sierra Whiskey. Sierra is the one who did the story and dialogue, and there's Easter eggs in it. What's good about it though is it's not heavy-handed with the Easter eggs. It's very subtle, and that's the thing when you're doing stuff with Easter eggs or inside jokes, is you want the viewer to start to catch them, like, oh wait, I didn't, and to go back to the beginning of the book and look at it again to find the Easter eggs, and then look at it again and again to find the Easter eggs. There's not a whole lot. One thing that bothers me is when you have those books that have too many Easter eggs. This did not have too many Easter eggs. Had just enough Easter eggs to make you go through to find them, but it didn't take away from the story itself. So I did enjoy that a lot. And so it was just a good, easy read. The next book I want to review and go over with you guys is Kor-Drath by Andy Smith and Dennis Turner. Andy proved me wrong when he said he was going to be doing this and how he was going to do this. He is much more confident. And if you've ever heard Graham Nolan, and he talks about how Claus Janson, he'll just like, with complete and utter confidence and not giving a shit, he'll ink with a roller brush or a house paintbrush with full complete confidence, not giving a shit, and when he inks. And that's what I started to get and feel from Andy doing his inking. One thing also I loved about it was Andy was much more detailed in this book as opposed to when he did First Man. First Man, the environments were sterile, if you will. There was one of those where it's like, okay, that's his bedroom. Okay, this is an office building. Okay, this is a park. But there was no those details that really make it stand out. And like, oh, wow, they weren't there. This time they were there. He went full blown, putting in as much as he could to really give you that sense of this environment that the characters are in. So I did enjoy that immensely. Perfect example, which you can see here in the campaign. If you were to go to Indiegogo, even though the campaign's closed, you can still look at the campaign, and you can still see the first like 5-6 pages. When you see page 2 and 3, which is a double page spread, I looked at that and I was like, oh my God, you can see the George Perez influence, because he put everything into that fight page. It's a double page spread. There are people fighting in the foreground, in the midground, in the background, all the way back to the trees. And I really appreciated that. Remember when they did that tribute to George Perez? It was done on Andy Smith's channel. And the way Andy was talking, he's got a great appreciation and respect for George. And you can see where he was really putting that respect and love of George's work into his battle scenes. I really enjoyed it. It really gave me that sense of, man, this is the stuff you want. And I don't know if it was because of his inexperience in the beginning of his career or deadlines, but if you look at like his early stuff, when he gives you fight scenes, but they're not full-blown immersed fight scenes like he's giving you here. Andy put everything into it, not just with the rendering, but also with the inking. He was very heavy with the blacks in certain spots, which I really, again, appreciated. Andy generally is generally not heavy with the blacks. This time he was. Again, and most people who follow him since he got into CG, a lot of you people can compare First Man to Kor-Drath the Reckoning, and you can see the difference. There's a lot more passion and love in Kor-Drath than I would say First Man. I don't know why. Maybe it's just how his approach and his methodology behind doing First Man, but there's a completely different feel to Kor-Drath as opposed to First Man. And it just really, there was a lot. Another thing also I liked about it was, when I was reading, I've got a background where I've read like the Dragonlance books by Weiss and Hickman, R.A. Salvatore, some of his stuff, David Edding stuff, Robert Jordan, his Wheel of Time series. This time, with how the story was done, with the slight dialogue references, you can tell Dennis Turner knows his stuff when it comes to fantasy fiction, and he really put his all into it. You can feel that. There were a few times during when I was reading it, there were references or things or dialogue that were kind of pop culture-y. And for me, it was one of those where it's like, it didn't fit in. If this would have been a parody story, it would have fit in more. But this, with the one example I'd give is the one barbarian, as he fights the Necro Knight, he makes a reference, "Today's a good day to die." And we all know that that's a war phrase from Star Trek, or a Klingon phrase. And for me, it's one of those where it's like, yeah, we know that the dialogue, it fits for the scene, but at the same time also, you don't really want to do that. It didn't sit well with me. How's that? I mean, it might sit well with others, and the dialogue might have part reference to the very end of the book. I'm not going to give that away, but the last 2 pages might explain why. But for me, it's one of those where it's like, I didn't really care for it. I would have appreciated if they didn't have that. But that's my personal taste. I could be right on the mark, or I could be completely off my rocker. And that's for you to decide and to agree and validate what I'm saying, or to disagree and to completely debunk my beliefs and feelings on this. One of the things though is how can I say this? I don't know if it's me as I'm getting older with my eyesight or what, but I wasn't completely crazy about the coloring. There were times when the coloring seemed to take the image and compress it together. The perfect example, there's a scene where Kor-Drath's in a room, the bedroom of an inn, or a hotel room, and the door bursts open, and how it was colored, I didn't really see it. I didn't really get that sense of it happening. When I then went and looked at the raw edition, when I say the raw, the book, the hardbound book edition, it's all black and white, and you see all the pencil work, and you see the inking. There it was much more clear, and there's a couple other pages where it was much more clear. I didn't get that, and I think it has. I know Gabe El-Taib, he's explained that a couple times when he was in the CG scene, when he's getting associated himself with characters for creators for the first time, and when it impressed them, he was a lot of times talking about coloring. And there were times where the coloring, I'm looking at it and I'm going, I bet you on a computer screen this looks great, but in the print format, it doesn't look as good. So that's my personal thing. There were times where after I was done reading it, I went and I looked at the raw edition immediately, and there's a lot of things in the raw edition that I was able to see much more clearer than I was in the color version. And I am going to be referencing Andy's book quite a bit moving forward, because remember, in my Scat Investigators, they're out in the woods. One of the hardest things when you're doing the woods is drawing the foliage and doing the trees in the background so it doesn't look like a movie set. And Andy did a very good job. Think about how Rob Liefeld talks about how when he was on with Billy Tucci. Remember, Billy Tucci still got his campaign funding. But remember how he was talking to Billy and talking about how comic books is problem solving, and how you got to solve the problem. Andy has solve the problem with how to put your characters into the woods, put the woods in the background, and it looks like it belongs. So I'm going to be looking at Kor-Drath, the raw edition, a lot to help me get better with doing the woods, especially with now doing the pages, which I can't show you, unfortunately, is a fight scene. I can't show it to you because I don't want you guys to see what they're fighting. But I don't see myself as stealing from Andy or anything. It's just because you got to keep in mind, when you look at artists who have figured it out and you use them to figure out how you're going to do it, you learn from them, then you take from it, and then you grow from it. Perfect example I always give is anybody who went to a fine arts school, one of the first things they'll tell you to do is they'll ask you to copy a painting. But here's the thing, is that many times you'll say, well, this is what I want to copy. They're like, don't do that. Do something like this. So basically it comes down to the teacher saying, do what I like. Don't do what you like. I know I encountered that firsthand when I was doing my 3D design class in my local community college, because I was a fan of Edward Hopper. I still am a fan of Edward Hopper. And I wanted to use Edward Hopper as the color scheme for this project. And the teacher was like, no, don't look at that stuff. He doesn't have a dynamic color palette. You need to be looking at these artists because they have a dynamic color palette. So I didn't learn a whole much from, I learned enough to get the assignment done, but overall moving forward, I didn't necessarily learn a whole lot because that art doesn't appeal to me. I'm much more into like the Romantic era. When I look at artwork, I like Franklin Booth and more of Rockwell and Gil Lavarge. And so how I look at it is not how the teachers wanted me to look at it, with looking at the expressionism, which, I'm sorry, the way these art teachers jism their pants talking about this expressionistic crap and the expressionism era, like, Monet, Manet, Toulouse-Lautrec, and Van Gogh, they all but cream themselves looking at this shit. And so, like, no, I like this stuff, and then they put you down for it. So it's like, for me, it's kind of like, man, fuck yourself. This is what I like. You're not going to tell me what, you're not going to dictate to me. I will do what I have to do to get the assignment done based on your guidelines, but you're not going to basically dictate who I'm going to like. I can learn as much, if not more, from an artist like Franklin Booth than I will copying Monet. So, but that's how I am. But no, getting back on track. So I am going to be using Andy a lot. I will be referencing his raw edition a lot, so I can learn, so I can get better at doing the environment that my characters are fighting in. So I really appreciated it. I would definitely advise anybody who's backing Andy, make certain that you're getting that hardbound raw edition. When he does the next story of the next installment of Kor-Drath, I know he's going to have it available. Make sure you get it. So, oh, I don't like how that's turning out. Let's flip this over. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to hit this all here. We're just going to let this bleed. Yeah, this is looking better now. So by hitting this heavier here, I can have it where it's bleeding into the blackness. So we can hit this with a couple dots. Yeah, that looks much better. That way we've got this white here. Yeah, we got this white here. We can actually pull that up. Yeah, we'll just do that. That does look better. Because remember, our focus with this is we got the lightsaber here. And so we got the face lit. So, yeah. That's the one thing that frustrates when you are inking and using the camera, and I've got it like the length of my nib is the length from the phone to the paper. Is it sometimes gets in the way with seeing what you have to do, and it's just something you got to work yourself past. But so no, I really did enjoy, and my thing was also with the coloring, and this is an example I've given many times. There were times where the coloring just, it flattened the image from the foreground to the background. And the example I always give is when Ivan Rios and Joe Prado were relaunching Justice League of America. Joe Prado showed on his Facebook page the first page of Happy Harbor with the lighthouse, with the mountain and the clouds in the background. And the colorist decided to completely just butcher all of that delicate line work that Joe Prado had put into the background for the clouds. And I remember seeing those pages on his Facebook page, going, "Oh wow, that looks so cool." Getting the book and then seeing that and just being utterly disgusted with the colorist. And like, you know, stay in your fucking lane, colorist. I'll be honest, I felt kind of the same way with looking at the raw edition versus the colored edition with Andy. I don't know whether where it shows up more vibrant and not as muddied on the computer screen versus on paper. I would be honest with you, I would almost prefer if Andy went with a colorist that worked much more in flats than having to render so much and that bothers me. So even every once in a while when I'll work on coloring a scat panel, it's when you're doing computer coloring, it's very easy to want to render everything with color because it's so easy. You gotta force yourself not to, and that's where I would see whether Andy needs to provide better instruction to his colorist or go on to a different colorist, like how Graham uses Gregory Wright as his colorist. And the colorist, I like how Gregory Wright does Graham's stuff. He doesn't overpower the color. He understands that Graham's the star. Graham's pencils are the star. His job is he is a side character. How he does his job to make the pencils the star makes him a better supporting actor. And I'm not seeing that with the colorist that Andy's using. So whether Andy needs to take the colorist by the reins and rein him in, or move on to another colorist like Gregory Wright. But I would like better coloring moving forward with Kor-Drath. So, because like I said, there are so many times I saw more with the raw edition than with the colored edition. So, okay, even though I didn't put it in, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start low, put a dark tone, put dots in here as a tone, and then blend it upward. So, and how I do that, I'm going to do the back of the nib. So I'm just going to go in and start putting in dots, and from there work my way up. Another nice thing is also when I'm doing these videos for you guys, I can move the page around and it doesn't bother you, the viewer, as opposed to when I do a time-lapse video and when the paper's moving all around, it distracts you from the work being done. So that's the reason why when I do a time-lapse video, I try to move the paper as little as possible. So, and then, so, I mean, I overall, I did enjoy Kor-Drath. I'm looking forward to the next one. Andy, like I said, Andy proved me wrong in so many ways with Kor-Drath. I thought for certain, I was like, this is the next project you're doing after First Man? What about this cartoony style you have? What about this Barracuda idea you have? He proved me wrong. He proved me wrong. So I look forward to more Kor-Drath. Him and Dennis are really firing all cylinders with it. Dennis really knows his fantasy fiction and really does a good job of, I guess, explaining it to Andy so Andy can provide the best possible artwork in the story. Because I feel that the first issue of Kor-Drath did more in story than the first two issues of First Man. There was a lot more, not just in the world building of the environment of the world that they live in, but just overall with character and action and moving from point A to point B in the story. And it wasn't those where it's like, we gotta go here, now we gotta go here, now we gotta. There was a reason for why they were on this quest that leads them through the story. And there's a couple twists at the end that, and again, I don't want to go into it, but it's like, I'm looking and going, this is what they're saying, but is it that or is it this? So I am looking forward. Bud Root's mini story in the back of it was great. I really did enjoy it, and more importantly, what was nice is how, like Dennis said, how like he was able to incorporate that into the story from what Bud did. So I enjoyed it immensely. I look forward. I hope Andy does a art contest, but I almost wish, in some ways, because I know they're doing they're going to do another module. I would almost challenge Andy that instead of doing a Kor-Drath art contest, have an art contest where it's like, okay, I need 8 drawings for the next module. If you're going to take part in an art contest, let me know and you'll be assigned one of these 8 drawings. You do that drawing, and then the best of those 8 will be incorporated in the module, something like that. And you'll get, you'll get a copy of you'll get a couple copies of the module. You'll get this or this, kind of like how Von Klaus did his, where he was like, I was like, if you win, you get all the goodies, but I'll make certain that you get credit in the book if you're in the gallery section. But I think that would be a cooler idea. So let's say he's got in the module, they want to have one of the spot illustrations they have is a tabletop with a spell book, a goblet, and dragon's teeth. And it doesn't really take part in the story, so Andy's not going to have that drawn. But they think it would be a good illustration for the module. Have that one of the things, so that way the person that provides that best, most interesting spot illustration, essentially, of that gets into the module. I think I kind of like that idea, where it's one of those, because you just think about it. Up until now, anybody doing a art contest, even Shane with his current for Accent, he's got an art contest, and they just say, we have an art contest. Do a splash shot of Accent. I think this way of having, okay, if you want to take part in it, you have to register with Andy and Dennis. So you contact them, say, hey, I want to take part in the contest. Okay, you're the first person to contact us. Here's your assignment. You've got spot illustration number 1. The second person that contacts us, you get the description for illustration number 2, so forth and so forth. And then so you've got 8 illustrations. The 9th person who contacts you, you're getting assigned number. So you'll have multiple submissions for illustration number 1. You'll have multiple illustrations, but they won't all be the same. And like I said, the winners get in. I like that idea. I do like that idea, because you think about it this way, okay, is giving it carte blanche where you're just able to give me a drawing. That's okay. But, okay, I'm going to take part in it. I need to be able to prove at the same time to Andy and Dennis, along with everybody else and every other creator in comics, that I can follow directions. So here are the directions. I'm assigning you option number or spot illustration number 1, and this is the description. And have like a paragraph long description of this table, giving you an idea of what the table looks like, what the chair looks like, what the room looks like. So when I do the drawing, hold on, let me flip this over. So when I have, when I have this, the image area, okay, and am I going to have the table small? Am I going to have the table small and you can see all the room? Or am I going to have the table big with the chair there, okay, with the goblet and the spell book and the teeth, and now I still have the background here that I can put. Let's say I'm going to have it's a room, so it's here, it comes up here, or actually no, it'll come down. It'll come down, actually it would be down here, but you have it down here, and that way you can put a big oak door with a dragon skull hanging from the back, so I can, get the sense. And there's drapes coming down, and there's like a fire sconce hanging from the wall in the back over here, and I've got some chains hanging down, so you can really give yourself. You can have one person doing the itty bitty table with the big room, and then you'll have another person who does the big grand oak table with the big room in the background. That way Andy can look at it, and again, Andy can look and go, this was what the description was we provided. This is how this person interpreted it. This is how this person. Perfect example is we actually, last night, we were watching the American Bake Off Holiday Edition. Miss Stippling was binge watching it, and it's I was watching it with her. And you think about how, like, they gave each cook an assignment, and they had to make the food. The judges tasted it, and there's one where I think the secret ingredient, or the spoiler ingredient they had to incorporate in there, and they get told this halfway through making it, was chestnut or nutmeg. And the one judge, like halfway through, she turns to the other judge and she goes, I've yet to taste the chestnut. Why can't any of these judges, why can't any of these cooks or bakers get this nutmeg into it, or this chestnut into it? So you think about it, that challenge. So Andy can read the paragraph and then be like, okay, this is what the assignment was. This is what I was provided. This illustration matches the paragraph description I gave the most. Therefore, this is the illustration that's going to win for being in the module. But yet we still have 7 other illustrations that we can then look at. So that way not everybody's doing the exact same thing. I don't know about you guys, but one thing that drove me batty was when you'd have the teacher would give an assignment, everybody had to do the exact same thing, and you then tape them up to the wall, and then you do a critique. And a lot of times they start from right to left. By the time they got to the one on the far left, you were so bored out of your mind of looking at the exact same goddamn thing, just done slightly different. Your brains were shut off. By Andy doing this way with multiple options, you're going to have different people doing it. And Andy then has the ability, let's say Andy is, I notify Andy, I want to take part in it. He takes a look at my YouTube channels and the stuff that I'm doing there. He's looking at my Twitter feed with the illustrations I post. He looks at my Facebook with it. He can then say, okay, based on what I'm seeing, and Vaughn does all this stippling, I think Vaughn's best catered to working on, or I would really be curious to see how he tackles the description for spot illustration number 6. Whereas Donald DeLay, he's taking part of it. He's going to look, his strengths lead to the idea that we have for illustration number 3. I don't know about you guys. I like this idea as opposed to how most of these creators just say, "Oh, here you go, guys. Just give me a splash illustration of Accent. Give me a splash illustration of Kit Carter, Aaron Lepresti's current campaign." Because you get a lot of entries, but they look relatively all the same. Perfect example I give you guys is when John Malin did his Godlike. Basically, he wants a Conan the Barbarian fighting a monster and it's Godlike. By the time he was done going over it with Kelsey, going over all the different submissions, you're kind of tired because you'd seen pretty much the exact same thing over and over and over again. So I think this way Andy and Dennis get more out of the art submissions and gives Dennis more material to work with if he wants to have a small or a broader campaign. Because remember, the whole purpose of having these campaigns is the campaigns are within the world of Shattered Reach, but they're not exactly the same as the hero's journey that we're currently following with Kor-Drath and Adriana. So that way you can have, let's say in the next book, Dennis has a module and he wants a Minotaur in it. But the Minotaur is not anywhere in the story for book 2. With the spot illustration, he now has that illustration of the Minotaur to have in the module. So, and the reason why I was using the table thing is because a lot of times if you look at Dungeons and Dragons modules, they would do that. They would have like they would have an illustration of, give the dungeon master and the gamers an idea of the room that they were entering, as opposed to constantly shots of like goblins running around. So, and the thing is you need those, and how well an artist can follow the direction and provide an interesting drawing of a table with a goblet and a spell book can lead to beggar. You gotta have the ability to do a good job and have it interesting you can't just always be doing pin-ups. You got to be able to, you got to do those pages of establishing shots with inanimate objects. And if you can do them almost like life studies, illustrations in it, you're showing not just to the person who, like Andy and Dennis, but you're showing to everyone else that you have the ability to do storytelling, not just doing pinups. Because in the end, that's what you have to do. You have to be able to show that you can tell a story. So, okay, I'm not going to be doing Ethan's wrecked planet. I'll do that another time. I've just eaten up all of my time talking about Dennis and Andy, which is actually, that's a good thing. You take a look at how like the rising level of my inflection or my voice and not being so monotone. The rise and lowering. I got into it. I really got into explaining this to you guys. So, Merry Christmas to all of you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Remember, this time of year can be very stressful for certain individuals. It doesn't hurt to reach out to a friend that you hadn't talked to in a while, or a loved one that you haven't talked to in a while, just to say hi to them, just to let them know that you're thinking about them, because you might have someone in your life that you aren't aware of it who's going through a hard time. Remember, unfortunately, this is the time of year where there are a lot of suicides because people feel unloved. At the same time, also, you just got to remind them that, I mean, life is stressful. You can't control everything in your life, but you can at least control everything one dot at a time.